is AB Convos Wrestling Edition. Oh man, that's what I'm talking about. We're back, baby. Ha ha! It's another episode of AB Convos Wrestling Edition's podcast with Marked by Wrestling, the member of the coalition. And as you can see, I'm being a real cool cat daddy. I got my cool glasses on. I got my cowboy hat on. I'm ready to get down with the get down. Are you ready? I said, are you ready?
You know, we look over at each other because we're actually in the same space, but I feel like I should be looking down like the Brady Bunch, like.
Well, here's a story.
Yeah, there you go. See, now Steven looked at me and looked at you. We have to do that. All right, you guys, we are back and we are going to be talking about Unreal Season 3.
Yeah, let's get into it, man. Without further ado, because, oh, man.
Hold on.
I got words.
I have to move this little. There is a hair that was moving in front of my camera.
There's a hair on my farina. There's a hair on my farina. If you're on an episode from Seinfeld, Steven, I don't know.
Anyway.
Always a line.
Mm-hmm. Always a line. All right. So they started off with the most obvious thing, which was John Cena's retirement. They absolutely admitted how it was fumbling, what was working, what wasn't working. How basically they were kind of letting John run with it, and then kind of Triple H was like, yeah, this isn't really working out as much. This is one of our mascots. She just wanted to be a part of the show.
Who demands treats.
I don't actually want to spend a lot of time on John Cena's retirement because, number one, we did that.
It sucked.
On podcast while we were doing it. And then we've done shows about it. You guys did a whole show about it. So, number one, I feel like I was glad to see that they were like, okay, yeah, this wasn't really working. I thought this was going well, but, he didn't think it was going well. And then they still think that it overall went well. Honestly, even though there was fumbles along the way, I've said before, I don't think it was as bad as you guys thought it was. But at the end of the day, what I did like about this was them showing. I still didn't really see the logic in Brock beating the heck out of him like that, but I did like that, as usual, being who he is. He wanted to make sure he was trying to bring people up, showcase other people, put as many people in the segment to get as many eyes as many people as he can, as a true passing of the baton. Like let's get all of Judgment Day involved. He loved that. Let Liv get physical. And so I liked the behind the scenes of how they were trying to make sure that they were, even though it seemed like everything was on him, that he was really trying to elevate people along the way. So, was there any feuds in there in particular where you felt like they did a really good job of that? Like, I feel like that they did a good job of that with Dominic Mysterio and elevating the Judgment Day in that feud with him. Did you guys feel like they were, regardless of how you feel about how his story was executed, did you feel like they did a good job of trying to elevate and bring in as much new talent as possible on his retirement tour?
Marked by Wrestling, I don't want to
start with you, Mark.
I'm going to stare at the camera even when we're addressing one another, so it looks more natural.
But you stared at me to say it.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
Look up, just look up and to the right when you talk to me.
Right. I'm just going to stare at the camera. That's what you do. So, Marked by Wrestling, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah. In its totality, I didn't have a big problem with Cena's retirement tour. I mean, the heel turn was the thing that I never cared for, and that wasn't all on Cena, and we talked about that at length, like you said, Becky. So yeah, I'm not going to get back into that. I was really impressed by Cena's commitment to a sort of selflessness. Like he wanted to make sure that the other talent went over, and, honestly, my favorite thing regarding elevating or spotlighting other talent. And I mean, you know, the way he took time with everybody he did, trying to navigate something that's really kind of never been done before, which is going to sound controversial because of the way it was received by the end of it, was that Saturday night's main event show. Bringing in the NXT talent, operating with Gunther, which, I mean, like, going all the way back to them sort of establishing, whether they retconned it or not, this is what Unreal is telling us, that from the beginning, Hunter and John agreed that him tapping out to Gunther was the end game, and to Gunther specifically. And so that's what they're telling us. But the thing that I actually want to bring up is the business side of it, where he addresses, well, why aren't you retiring at WrestleMania? It's like, because adding my last match to WrestleMania is not going to move any more tickets than WrestleMania is already going to sell. I want to be spotlighted at a show where we're normally not making as much money as we are, so we can lift that up. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a smart businessman. And that's why Cena's always going to be, that's why Michael Cole is probably going to call him the GOAT, even though I don't believe him. You know, all these things. These are the kinds of things he thinks. So he thinks outside of the ropes. It is the difference between an internet fan who got trained in wrestling and a pro wrestler. And so, on that note, one thing we haven't heard about in months is the John Cena Classic. And as soon as he described his rationale behind choosing December for that, I was like, oh, they're going to do the John Cena Classic in Q4. 100%. Like, we're not getting that in the middle of the year between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. It's like, no wonder we haven't heard about it, because I'm 100% convinced that is going to happen in a quadrant of the year that is typically down for them, which I think is a smart move. And like, if you can create anticipated content in every quarter of the year, that's a good thing for wrestling. Because let's face it, that time between, sometimes Survivor Series isn't even always as hot as it used to be anyways, because War Games gets a little, you know, that's another talk for another time about gimmick matches that don't need that don't need the match it has. But that time between SummerSlam and the Royal Rumble can really dip. So I think adding something that has some sauce to it is good. I'm glad Money in the Bank got moved to that part of the year. It makes it a little more, it gives us a little something to talk about that has possibilities. And, you know, when we have things to talk about, the three of us, you know, life is a lot better.
You know, let me clear my throat. Oh, okay. Have mercy.
I hope you don't mind.
Look, yeah. See, I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna just have to disagree with y'all, homeboys. I'm not gonna spend any kind of quality time talking about this. Obviously, they film stuff when they film it, and they air it when they air it. So we've already moved past this John Cena stuff. I get the idea of where he's coming from. There is a distinct difference, and I'll simply say it in like acting terms. Professional wrestlers, they sell, but truthfully, you're acting. Let's just be honest. I've seen the behind the scenes where I think it was, oh gosh, who was it? Was it was Orton, actually. It was Orton. I think he was working with, it might have been Logan Paul. At any rate, he was, or no, whoever the heck it was the celebrity, whoever it was, or he was basically trying to, okay, let's mix it up a little bit in the ring, and then Orton's doing his thing, and he's selling. He's like, and the guy really thought like, oh my gosh. He's like, okay, see, now this is your job. You're not really wanting to hurt your opponent, but your opponent has to sell it like it's legit. And that's why I've always felt it was interesting when I would see wrestlers actually go into Hollywood and act. I never quite understood. For me, I always felt their performance seemed a little unnatural. And then when I would see them in the ring, it would be very natural. And I never quite understood what that was all about. And it took some people like Hogan eventually, and Dwayne Johnson eventually, and Batista for sure, to get to a point where you're going to work with some acting coaches and you're going to do things differently, because everything is different. Every arena, everything that you do is different. And we talked about this before with like The Wizard of Oz, and you have stage actors that are acting as if you're on stage to the people all the way in the back, and it translates differently. Everything in the arena that you're doing is different, and it doesn't necessarily translate the same way. So I say all that to say, I understand what John Cena's idea was and his concept was, and especially for somebody that has been working in Hollywood as long as he has been. He thought, this is how I want to do it. What's my why? What's my whatever? And The Rock would say, what's my anchor? Everybody has the same thing. What's the story and what's the thing that we're going to center this around? The idea that he's going to ruin wrestling by making it boring. I don't think that translated. I don't think it translated the way that he thought it did. And if it did, then they wouldn't have pivoted away from it because nobody was buying it, in my opinion. You didn't make it boring. You kind of half-butted it. And I say that to say, you had your thing with your Titantron, and then it would go to just a black screen with white letters, John Cena, but you still came out in your Fruity Pebbles outfit. I mean, you did. You wore the belt backwards. You had a stone face. And you wrestled kind of whatever. That didn't make it boring. That just made it seem like you guys don't really know what you're doing in a way that you think you do, and especially with that tap and that smile. That's not Hollywood. It works on a big screen when you're watching it in a theater. It doesn't work when you are in a professional wrestling ring with thousands of fans watching you doing it in a way that we've never seen you do it before. I get the idea behind it. For me, it just did not translate. None of it translated the way that they thought it would. That's why they pivoted. I thought it was a waste of time, and I was ready to move on.
You see how he didn't actually answer my question, but that's okay. I know. But that's because his obsession with what he felt about John Cena's retirement.
I'll answer it in 2 lines. What was the question?
The question is, how did you feel about the talent he was trying to elevate, what he was trying to do with make sure that he spotlighted as many people as he could with him on his way out? Like, did you feel like there was anything in particular with that?
Yeah, with Dominic Mysterio? Sure.
Not just Dominic. He was doing it with a lot of different people. That's why he was trying to give Gunther the rub. I mean, just in general, with like he said, he did want to have Drew, but then the audience kind of pivoted and showed him something else he wanted. It was unfortunate that he admitted that he knew with AJ that was also going to be like AJ was about to retire in a few months, and they knew that because of his retirement. It wasn't mentioned until like a week before, and that was unfortunate. Like, I feel like AJ Styles kind of got the short end of the stick there.
I'm still glad we got that match as a result, though.
Yes,
because to have found out a month later after Cena retired that AJ's gone too, and then to have been like, we didn't get that match, like, and now we're never going to get that match. Because I'm telling y'all, like, reading interviews, like, those are both 2 dudes who were like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
not like I'm gonna be back. Like, you know, yeah.
Well,
No.
I appreciate the fact that he wants to. That's kind of what it is, right? When somebody's on their way out, they fall on their shield and they elevate the next talent. That's just what they do. I get that old world concept, and I feel a type of way about that. I've said that with Hollywood, where somebody always has to die, and we're going with, we see Marvel coming up with Avengers Doomsday, and we already know how I felt about that. But I'm saying, like, characters have to die in order to push another character's arc over. And it's the same in pro wrestling. Like, I'm going to push you up. I'm going to elevate you. I'm going to give you the rub. And you're going to get the John Cena treatment, if you will. I think he has some decent matches. I appreciate the fact that he always wants to elevate other talent, and that's great. And that's very big of him, like you had said, in regards to Brock. That just sucked. But you're trying to make him to be a beast, but you also are putting him with Oba that, is I don't know. I'm not settled with it. I get it, but at the same time, there were some things I think that they faltered on along the way.
Well, let's go into that because Oba. So they also addressed Oba coming up. They also addressed Brock, and I just want to say, they didn't address the Brock retiring thing, but and also they didn't address something else that I feel like they didn't address was Austin Theory. Because I still don't think Austin Theory's originally he was supposed to be in the Vision. I don't think that was the original plan. And I think that as they went into the Vision curse, and they went through all the injuries. I think they slipped Austin in there, but they didn't say that. But I still think that's what happened. But it did seem like the vision was cursed. So we could get into that too. But first, let's talk about Oba and Brock quickly or briefly. I thought that the one and done would have been fine. But I'm going to say that now what they're doing with Brock and Oba, I love it. Brock is having so much fun. And it's fun to see the Beast have fun and not just be so serious. He knows he's on his way out. He knows Oba is the new Beast and that he is, but the fact that he's the restraining order and the laughing, I didn't think I was going to be emotionally invested in this. I thought that they were just going to be two behemoths going at it, and that's what it was eventually. But I actually like what this is coming to. I still think the King of the Ring thing was a complete flop. I think it was a waste. I personally don't think you should have gave him the crown in a match that he was going to pass on. That's just a waste. You could have just gave it to someone else, gave it to it next year when you were ready for him to take that match. But anyway, overall, what are you guys feeling about how Oba and Brock, not just the retirement thing? I know Brock has said that he was trying to retire and that he was not allowed to because of a contract, which is what a contract is, Brock. You're not above the contract. Vince is not here anymore. So obviously he shouldn't have did what he did. He thought he could and he couldn't. But with him here now, how do you feel about where we are now with Brock and Oba approaching SummerSlam and how it's playing out now?
Well, I'll say this real quick in regards to the King and Queen of the Ring. I'm over it at this point. They don't care about it. They don't treat it like they used to. And this is just facts. I will die on this hill. You had them come out, I think the next week with the crown, and that was pretty much it. At this point, they're not even acknowledging the fact that they're King and Queen of the Ring. It doesn't even matter. It's not like it used to be, and I'm frustrated with it, and I wish they either go all in or just go all out. And at this point, I want them to go all out because they don't seem to care. With that said, I don't know what Brock's contract looks like. I don't know how much time my man has with the WWE. I don't know if in his mind he legitimately thought, because we also saw John Cena during his last match. He did what we saw Brock do. He put the shoes down. You took the wristbands and all that. You put it in the middle of the ring. We've seen that time and time again. That is a very symbolic thing. Something like Gunther says, the mat is sacred. So there's some things that you just shouldn't play around with. And when you do that, that's supposed to be it. If Brock decided to call an audible and TKO was like, yeah, listen, PTO not approved, we're going to need you to show up on Monday, that sucked. That's something that is an unfortunate event that I wish had never happened. If you're going to come in here and, like you said, you're going to show Brock, you're going to show Oba, you're going to show these beasts, I thought it was a perfect match where Brock and Oba had their moment. You saw Oba had a single tear because he was just so touched. And that was one thing that I think carried throughout Unreal, is that you see these wrestlers being put in these moments like Lash Legend, and they're just so grateful that they're overwhelmed. I love to see that realism. And Oba had that moment when he was interacting with Brock. And then when they had their match, that just seemed like perfection. Like, okay, you got the rub, you got elevated, you beat the beast, you conquered him, and let's move on. And the TKO was like, no, we got a little more juice left in this. We're going to just wring the sponge out a little more. And now we have the third go-around. It's Rocky 3. And I'm not quite sure how this is going to turn out just yet. So, I don't know. I don't know how I feel.
Okay. Mark?
Well, I think Brock and Oba is the best feud in professional wrestling right now, bar none, which doesn't also say a ton about the quality of feuds in professional wrestling right now, but also like it's It is easily like the money. I've said it on every stream I'm doing when the topic gets brought up. That's the money match, and if I weren't such a Puritan for having the WWE title being the thing that should main event, I would say that Hell in a Cell match should main event night too. Like if you were going to go with what your hottest match is, what your big money maker would be, that one eclipses every other feud in my mind. I found it very telling, and I said this on my TikTok, my Instagram channel when I did my own little review of season 3, which please check me out, Mark by Wrestling. That I found it very telling that they were radio silent on Brock's retirement actions after the WrestleMania match, because that was one thing I was looking forward to the most, was seeing how everybody in Gorilla reacted, seeing how Heyman reacted, and Heyman's an overactor, but there's acting, and then there's like he's acting, but also there's more to it, and the silence speaks way more to me than the production. Which tells me they were not planning for him to do that. They were not in the loop on that, and they are leaving that out of the plans, because boy, oh boy, with Unreal, do they love to take a thing and even retcon it to say, like, oh yeah, this was a part of what we were always going to do, or we didn't know this was going to happen, but now we're going to make it a part of what's going to happen. And the fact that they just kept completely quiet on it was way more telling to me than anything they've done since then. Listen, I think you go all the way back to Brock and Cena at WrestlePalooza. You create a killer so you can introduce a killer of the killer. I'm not sure if they knew that about Oba when that happened, but they did. That felt like, and some people probably will agree, but feel differently than I feel about it when they agree, that him beating Cena like that was kind of like him breaking the Undertaker streak over again. Like, it just shocking and sucking all the air out of the room and all this kind of stuff. But as a result, you're like, great, it's unbeatable Brock again until someone shows up to beat him. And Oba, I think they've saved the best for last in this, the way they booked Oba. Real quick on King of the Ring. The King of the Ring thing doesn't actually bother me as much as it bothers everybody else, because there have been far more kings and not queens, because they only started that recently, but there have been far more Kings of the Ring who haven't had title shots than those who have. Like, that's WWE is very hot and cold on that stipulation, historically. So now, if it was the Royal Rumble, I'd be crashing out, because I did with Cody, that whole Cody Rock thing. Like, do not mess with the stipulation of the Royal Rumble. That's pretty much been sacred since '93, with the exception of the McMahon year. And even then, Austin had a match for the right to go there. They still work that back in. All right, so I'm getting a little away from it, but Oba and Brock, I really love this feud, and I like the fact there's one nitpick I don't enjoy, which is that Brock was the one who suggested Hell in the Cell be the match. I think that is inconsistent with the character Brock has changed into, which I actually really love. And I wish other heels could follow in Brock's footsteps a little bit, namely Roman a little bit, and just hear me out. Brock has an unbeatable aura to him, right? And there are a few wrestlers who have earned that right in wrestling to be perceived that way. And there's so much power and there's so much completeness in the storytelling when that performer can have one guy who makes him quake just a little bit. Yeah. And Brock has found that guy. And ever since he lost at WrestleMania, he has approached Oba in a completely different mindset, attacking him from behind, going low and kicking him in the cojones, running away from him, getting restraining orders, all these sorts of things, creating distance between himself and Oba, which I'm so glad. I don't know if it was a writer who fed Oba this line, or he had it, or Brock or Paul Heyman gave him this line, but he said, you used to run things around here, now you just run away. And I'm like, thank you for saying the quiet part loud, because I feel like some of the crowd is not noticing what Brock's doing here. It's, Brock's doomsday clock has been ticking since
Yeah.
Clash in Italy, and he knows it.
Yeah.
Like, and he is behaving like a caged animal who is in the death rattles right now. Like he knows so like there's only one acceptable solution to SummerSlam and that match. And I'm telling you, if it doesn't go that way, I'm going to question, for as much grace as I give creative, I think I give more than the average, reactor and stuff.
Yeah.
It is, I don't want to call it predictable, but like, it is like come on, like this is the story. Like, yeah, of course they're going to beat Thanos. Maybe we don't know how it's going to happen, but like, don't sit there and tell me at the end of Endgame that Thanos is going to win twice. Like, stop it. Like, that's not the story of good versus evil. So
Right.
I think I'm along for the ride. I do wish Oba had been the one who had pushed for Hell in the Cell instead.
Yeah.
That would have made more sense to me. So you can't run away from me, hello. I mean, right. Anyway, but nevertheless, small nitpick, and booking's never perfect. But I tell you what, man, the way Brock has sold for him, and like, they're really making something out of Oba, and I'm really excited. And I'm kind of encouraged with the disappointment of the whole King of the Ring title shot thing that everybody feels. I like that Oba carried just a little bit of swagger to Adam Pearce, to being like, when I'm ready for a title shot, I'll get a title shot, which not everybody can say on the roster, but he can.
Yeah.
I mean, especially on Raw right now, there's not a babyface on Raw who can demand a title shot that's more prone to one than Oba Femi. Even this past Monday, when he just kind of showed up in the Danhausen segment, like, he strikes fear in the heart of the rest of even Danhausen. He's like, nope, I don't want anything to do with this. Yeah, right. So like, I love somebody online said Adam Pearce is now looking at Oba the way Teddy Long used to look at the Undertaker. Like, he is the punishment.
Well,
yeah, you going one-on-one with Oba Femi. So yeah, I mean, like, he's in some rarefied air, and like, the Sunday just needs that cherry on top, at SummerSlam, and we'll be golden.
yeah. I loved I feel like when you're looking at Unreal, it's not as much about the stories as about the complications that are happening and the real stories that are happening behind the scenes. And so in this case, I really did feel more for the creative than I have before, because you went from, okay, when the Vision first came together, we're like, dang, they're dominant. This is crazy, right? And then you have Seth injury. Then you have, okay, we'll push Braun, but they weren't ready to push him yet, but hopefully he'll step up. Okay, well, now he's injured. Let's go ahead and put Bronson, because that's the next. Okay, well, he gets injured right away. Then you had brought in Logan Paul, who also got injured. It really did seem like a Vision curse that was going on, And then you have Liv Morgan's injury. You have Stephanie Vaquer, who needed to step back and be like, you know what, my body needs some rest because I haven't rested in 6 years. And so we, we would love for Stephanie to never have left and to just keep doing what she was doing. But she worked so hard to get there that literally she got there and was like, "Whoo, I'm here. I'm going to faint." Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something, your body can only do so much. But I feel like when I looked at creative, as they just had to go and just erase the entire plan they had, like, okay, Vision is injured. We have to completely pivot. Okay, now Liv Morgan is injured. We have to pivot. Like, they first of all, one of the things I think is that they need to see more star power. Like, Triple H was like, yeah, Trick is ready. He can't do any more down there. He needs to come up here. And Michael Hayes, good old Michael Hayes, who can't see what he has in Chelsea Green, is like, well, yeah, but he's not going to just pop off when he gets up here. He's going to need some time or whatever. Wrong again. I mean, dude, Trick Williams has got it. And it is the entire gamut of what you need. The attitude, he wants to learn. He wants to do better. He's humble. He wants he understands the music. He understands when he's looking at his hand, like, he's got that And I love that he was like, Trick is not a heel, Trick is not a face, Trick is just Trick. I love that too. I like the confidence to come into the main roster knowing that I'm just going to walk my own line. I don't feel like I need to do that. I don't know that many people who came up to the main roster from NXT and instantly, him and Oba instantly got that same pop that they get down there. And I know they didn't really show Javon, but I could tell because I know you were always talking about those three coming up together, Mark, that when they did show little snippets of Javon backstage, that he's like everybody's little brother. And I love that. I love that so much. So with all the new talent that is coming up, you heard Seth Rollins talk about that he was sad, that he felt like that was going to be his opportunity to main event WrestleMania, and that he's never been that headliner. I personally don't think he ever will be. I think the feud that he's having right now with Roman would have been that opportunity, but you have too much amazing talent who's come up now. You have Oba and Brock going. You have Trick Williams up here. You have too much going on. I just don't think Seth is that main event. He is not a Roman Reigns. I know that you feel that same way. Do you think, I'll start with you, Mark. Do you think that Seth has reached the pinnacle of, like, you've already reached it and you're already on your way back down? There is not going to be any main eventing, or do you think he still can hit that goal?
Well, as to whether or not he'll main event WrestleMania, I mean, he'll do it if creative wants him to do it, which
Right.
sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer. But, like, I would have said the same thing about CM Punk a few years ago, but here we are. So,
Right.
I think that CM Punk type of option is still open for Seth Rollins. But I'll probably say this again when we do SummerSlam predictions with Alex, is the harsh truth is that Roman Reigns is right about Seth Rollins. He is a perennial number 2. But the thing is that seems like an insult when you're cutting a promo. But wrestling is a team sport. To have a truly successful product, you need, like, you can make the argument that Michael Jordan wouldn't have won all those titles without Scottie Pippen.
Right.
And like, think about every headline feud that Seth ever had. He was always the guy working with the guy, which also Triple H was that too. At the hottest moments. And so, like, Seth working with John Cena, working with Brock Lesnar, working with Roman Reigns, working with CM Punk. But I mean, like, he's not the draw in his biggest feuds, but his presence in those feuds elevates them. So, like,
Right.
I don't think that's anything to, and I know that's not what you're asking, but, like, I just want that to be said too, that,
I think
like,
that makes sense.
I think it's good for everybody to want to be the guy, but also, like, I also like the Chelsea Greens of the world of, like, I'm going to be whatever you ask me to be, and, like, or the John Cenas of, I'm going to put my show, my big spotlight show, in an area where the business needs it the most, instead of where
Right.
I want it to be for my own personal spotlight and ego. And I think there's a balance you have to have there to really be a complete performer. And I do hate the injury bug for Seth, man. That's just, like, he's just got terrible luck. I mean, the entire vision, really. But all that. And I will say, real quick, I can't believe I'm defending Bruce Pritchard. But I saw, like, there were already 500 hot takes on Twitter before I could even open up Netflix that morning, because the grifter accounts are already clip farming, like, every 5 seconds. And I just had to shut down my internet for a while so I could actually watch the show blindly. The idea of the NXT guys not being ready, to provide context for people who actually haven't actually watched Unreal and just read people's quotes, about it. A lot of that sentiment, what I got from it, was the idea of, it's not that Oba and Trick aren't good or they're not going to succeed. It's just that from a guy who streams NXT every week, let me tell you, there's just a whole world of difference in being over in NXT and being over on the main roster. Those two guys have, and Javon, have proved themselves exceptional.
Right.
Which is a rarity over the years in NXT call-ups. The history of NXT call-ups, it's taken a little time for guys to heat up once they get debuted. And, we could argue why that is. But there is like a massive, upgrade in the size of the crowd, the size of the production, all that stuff. And so there is a learning curve for that. And I think when that was being said, I thought I received that comment when it happened in the episode as, we're still going to go with them, but we need to be prepared that they're going to have to do some adjusting, and they're going to have to do that basically acknowledging, okay, Hunter, but we are throwing them in the deep end. You know that, right? Like, so that kind of thing. And to be fair, Trick and Oba, for sure, those two didn't sink 1 inch. So, like, I mean, and they've
walked
risen
on water.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Fur on their shoes and everything. So they're good to go.
And you?
Repeat your question.
Repeat my question. I don't remember my question. No, I'm just kidding. We were talking about the call-ups, and we were talking about Seth and that moment that he shared with us that he still wants to be the main headliner of WrestleMania, and that I'm saying with all the new talent that's come up, I don't see that happening.
When it comes to Seth Rollins, he's proven himself to be somebody who can show up and show out every time. Now, he's not my... I don't know if... I'm not... I don't want to be prejudicial here, because people will always say, what's your Mount Rushmore for wrestling talent? And I would love to put Seth Rollins up there. He's never been like my go-to guy, but he's a go-to guy. But like you said, Mark, he is a injury-prone individual, and it's unfortunate that his body is like that. He's been wrestling for a long time, and he's feeling his mortality. I think more so now than ever that he's married, he has a kid, and that changes things for a lot of people. And he said it himself, and this is not the first time we've heard somebody say it, there's more years behind me than there are in front of me. And when you're faced with that sort of mortality, especially in professional wrestling, because as we've seen, this is something, when it's in the blood, this is what you really want to do, it's hard to let go. And nobody wants their spotlight taken. Nobody wants their spot taken. Nobody wants to fight off all of the young bucks that are coming up, nipping at the heels. But that's just the nature of the business. And he knows it, and everybody knows it. And it's unfortunate, and you kind of have to make your peace with it when you start to feel it slip away a little bit. Even when he came back from injury and then he finished that match, and then he says, my body hurts. He got the ice pack here. He's got the ice pack here. He's looking a mess, because he doesn't have quite as much cartilage in between those joints that, say, a Javon Evans does. And he's literally feeling Father Time ticking away. And that's a tough pill to swallow. Is he a main event guy? Sure. Is he somebody that's going to main event at WrestleMania again? It really depends. It just really depends. There's so much new talent coming up right now, and so many other guys that are going to be put in a position to where you don't really have a whole lot of room. I think Triple H said this on season 2 of Unreal. Not everybody, we have a lot of talent, not everybody's going to get a spot. And that's another reason why I feel a type of way about Unreal in general, because it's so carefully curated. This is not like a Dark Side of the Ring, where they're just showing us whatever they're showing us in a way that's like an unauthorized kind of a thing. They're showing some stuff that we didn't see, which is cool. But like you had said, Mark, to where they were dead silent on Brock's quote-unquote retirement. They didn't even address it. Nobody addressed the elephant in the room. Didn't appreciate that. So you can write anything that you want, and I've said this to her before. I'm glad to see a lady in the writer's room. I don't think we had a lady in the writer's room the first 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall seeing a female writer. So it's good to see that we've got a writer that's a lady in there. And I'm hoping is going to some degree, push for the ladies, but there's only so much that you can do. But you can write pretty much anything you want. You just have to make it make sense. That's all I ask. And WWE far too often just doesn't. They write stuff, and anybody can they're just doing their thing, but they don't always make it make sense.
Okay, so with that, we have 10 minutes left, and what I want to do with both of you for the last 10 minutes. So we saw a lot of behind the scenes, like I said, with John Cena. We saw CM Punk and AJ Lee. We saw, how her return came about. We saw Larry and then the loss of their dog and how hard, that hit CM Punk hard. I think he's still trying to recover from that. You have, we talked about the people who were coming up, but then you also had Stephanie Vaquer, and it went through that with her family, her struggle, her dad coming and being there and the importance of that. Overall, looking at this season of Unreal, what, out of all of the different things that they talked about and shared, was there anything that stuck out to you that made you change your mind about how something was handled, or why they had to pivot, or just anything that really resonated with you, that you were like, okay, I'm really glad that I saw that, and it stuck with you, and maybe it changed your mind about something? So you each have about 4 minutes to reply.
Good, sir.
Okay, I'll try to be fast because there's actually a couple of things I want to mention, but they're both kind of short.
Okay.
One is the overall unified spirit of the ladies' locker room. How many times two women who are going over something in a match, and then but then all of a sudden you pan over and you see 4 or 5 other women just cheering them on, or laughing along with them and everything like that. And you know who was in every single one of those segments? Bayley.
Yep. Bayley.
So stop. I would caution everybody to stop AI making their AEW graphics with Bayley just yet.
Yeah.
She might hang around. She might go the natty road. I don't know what Bayley wants, but she is clearly beloved by that group, and she loves that group too. Yeah. And every one of them. I saw her she was hanging out with Judgment Day. She was hanging out with Lyra. She was hanging out, Stephanie was hanging out with AJ and Punk, and she was everywhere. And that caught my eye, and I'm like, man, that doesn't seem like a person who's ready to leave. It just doesn't. And granted, 6 to 8 months ago, who knows? A lot can happen. But that's something that stuck out. The other thing, CM Punk, and seeing CM Punk every time he was hanging out with Triple H, just did something to my heart, man. Because that, a lot of his words in that 2014 podcast with Colt Cabana were seared into my brain. And wrestlers are good actors, but they're not that good. You know what I mean? I think there is some real healing between both of those men. I think Triple H almost dying of that heart attack did a lot to soften his stance on people he held beef with. And whatever Punk went through between 2014 and 2024 is a changed man, at least in result of those sorts of things. And, maybe AJ had something to do with that. Maybe Larry had something to do with that. Maybe, all that, maybe going to AEW and seeing how they run things shook up his perspective a little bit. I don't know. Could be all the above. But there's one thing. I think it was WrestleMania. They're just hanging on the ropes like a couple of bros, chatting it up, talking about Oba. They're both putting Oba over together. And Punk says something very specific to Triple H that, made me double take. And because Triple H was saying, well, we're going to throw him in the deep end with Brock. And so, Hunter believes in Oba, but he's still got to see it, That match still has to happen. And it's on Hunter if it fails, right? So you kind of feel that pressure from Hunter whenever he's saying stuff this season. And so Punk says, and I can't get the quote verbatim. I should have, searched it or written it down. You can't be a main eventer unless you get in the ring with a main eventer. Yes. And Hunter immediately grabbed onto that, and he's like, 100, I totally agree. And he said the same thing 10 years ago on that podcast to Colt Cabana, bitterly, when he felt like he was being held back. And like because he compared it to hockey, like the minor league hockey like does that with their players. And so he was just like bitterly saying, like, you know, I should be getting these spots. I should be in these main events. Like, you can't expect me to be the guy if you won't put me in the ring with the guy, like, to learn from. And so now Punk is the guy, and he's getting to do better than what was done to him. And so small quote, small blink and you'll miss it moment in the series this season, but a real full circle moment for Punk and Triple H. And I was just like, man, you know, I love to see something broken be restored, man. And between those two, like, I don't know, I'm not saying they send Christmas cards to each other or anything like that, but they clearly both of them always had a mind for the business, and now they see it in each other. And
I love
now
that.
they're
And I love
they can
that you highlighted something that you said. You said, right, that like this would have been missed. And so now you've highlighted it. So it won't be missed, hopefully, for people who listen to this and for you.
You know, I like that you hit on something that's broken is better. That's the thing that I think really stood out to me in this season was Stephanie Vaquer talking about how she started, where she came from, how she had her whole face busted open. And she's saying this as you hear the voiceover of her talking, putting this clay pot back together. Mm-hmm. And I've said that before, where you start off as a mirror that looks or you know, a windshield or whatever that looks whole, looks pure, and then you go through life happens, and you know, nothing will hit you as hard as life, but it'll beat you down. You know what I'm talking about. And you put it back together. You get back up. You keep moving forward. You know, that is probably one of the most profound lines in a movie I think I've ever heard. Is seeing that broken piece, and I've said it's like a mosaic where you go through life and you're shattered, and you're gonna put yourself back together, and it has even more value, even more beauty, because you're adding gold and silver and everything to make something new. And I love that you can reinvent yourself and take that, but then you even have to take some time for yourself and figure out, where's my mental status. You got to do a check-in, and I've seen that I think that was a continuing theme with everybody throughout the WWE, is that at some point everybody has to do a mental health check-in and see where am I right now. Mm-hmm. I got to take the temperature of where I feel my character is, where I feel the person is deep down inside versus the character. They're two different people. And how do I want to, like John Cena said, how am I going to go out? What is my legacy going to say about me? And I think that's the thing that stands out more than anything for me. It's just seeing how the quote unquote person is feeling about what it is that they're doing and their performances. Now, with that said, ultimately, like I said, in this wacky world of professional wrestling, it's the writers at this point that there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen when it comes to doing this product. When you've been in a wrestling arena, the bottom line is, and I think it's more apparent for me anyway, when I'm in a wrestling arena versus watching it on TV, that this is the wrestlers, everybody, they're a product. They're a means to an end here. We've got to hit their spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the finish, and we're out. And that's just kind of how it is. And I feel like if everybody is going to do their part and do it correctly, then we can move forward with this thing called professional wrestling, and we all can enjoy it a little more at the end of the day. So long as everybody's healthy, happy, and moving things forward is collaboration, I think we got something good.
All right, you guys, that once again, goes so fast, but that was our time here today. So we do recommend watching Unreal of season 3 of Netflix. If you know, obviously, if you've seen 1 and 2, I would recommend seeing 3. If you never wanted to see behind the scenes, then I mean that's on you. But for us, like for me, especially these different moments that he's talking about, whether it's Stephanie's moment, whether it's the moment with CM Punk, seeing Bayley behind the things, I think these are things that do endear us as fans to these people, reminding us that they are people and they are putting their all on the line for us. And sometimes as fans, we can be hypercritical of people who are giving us all they have and really putting their heart, soul, mind, body on the line, and we do appreciate that. So if any of you hear this, we do thank you. We do appreciate you. And Coalition will be back with another episode soon.
Marked by Wrestling. Let the people know where they can find you before we sign off.
Yeah, follow me on YouTube, Marked by Wrestling, Instagram and TikTok, Marked by Wrestling. We go live every Tuesday night for NXT, the big PLEs. I'm peppering in a little Raw and SmackDown lately, and then we also do wrestling trivia and some retro shows as well with my brother called Mount Rushmore Matches. So just come to the channel, man. Just watch some stuff.
All right.
We got plenty to do.
Bye.